Has anyone ever felt stuck? Like your gears are just mucked up and you are paralyzed and in peril? Like our text in the swamps of sadness, or Peter Venkman after he got slimed and he's writhing around in a funk. That was me at 25. I was in a full-blown quarter-life crisis. I was a stand-in and an extra in TV shows, close to but never really part of the action. We were called second team because we were never first. I was constantly on the bench begging, "Put me in, coach!" This was not the life I envisioned. You see, I grew up obsessed with animals, especially gorillas. And I wanted to be a zoologist. I was convinced I was going to be a zoologist, but I started flailing with math and science. So I pivoted. I decided if I couldn't be a monkey chaser, I was going to do the next best thing, comedy. After a year of theater school, I dropped out to work in the film industry. And instead of starring in my own sitcom, I was an extra in someone else's, and then someone else's, and someone else's. Let's just put it this way. You've seen the back of my head in a lot of TV shows. But I missed school. So I went back to community college and took a zoology class. We had to do a zoo project, so naturally I chose to study Caesar, the 400-pound western lowland gorilla. And he was a beauty. He was a year older than me, and he was the first gorilla delivered by cesarean section, hence the name. He was raised by humans, so he didn't want to get down with the female gorillas, so he spent a lot of time with himself, or with me if I visited. And when the zoo was redoing his enclosure, they shipped him off to Hotlanta, where he finally was getting amorous with the female gorillas, and tragedy struck. He died of intestinal issues, and I was devastated. And at the time, I was working as a stand-in on a TV show called Cold Case, so there I was, this weird girl, mourning the death of a gorilla, living a life I did not recognize, nor did I want to. But all that changed on January 22nd, 2005. I was leaving my boyfriend's house, and the last thing I said to him as I climbed into my pickup truck was, "I'm not wearing any underwear." This will make sense later. And I promise. And I took off. Like a good California, I took Alameda to the 134 West, to the 101 North, and was transitioning to the 405 when traffic slowed. I slammed on the brakes, they locked. I hit the person in front of me. They pulled over on the shoulder, I followed suit. I knew how dangerous this was. And I said, "Hey, can we just please get off the freeway? It's so dangerous." And as luck would have it, I hit 3 Japanese men in town on business who didn't speak a lick of English. One guy was holding his neck, so I ran to go grab my insurance, and because I'm a highly organized individual, couldn't find it. So I called my little brother, who had the same insurance, and I stood between my pickup truck and the car I rear-ended as far as the freeway as I could. Then I heard it. It was a loud and low rumble. I turned to look, I just saw a glint of silver, and then boom. I put my arms up, and I'd like to think I said, "Not the face!" But it was probably, "Fuck, shit, cocksucker!" And in that moment, I knew I was dead. There was no way I was going to survive this, and there's no reason I should have, really. Spoiler alert, I'm still here. She hit my truck hit me. The initial impact broke my femur, then I was pinned between my truck and the car I rear-ended, crushing my right leg. And the way she hit me, my truck spun out, and I kind of got tossed onto the off-ramp and landed on my head, which explains a lot. I blacked out. Next thing I know, I'm coming to, and it's just so bright. They're loading me into the ambulance, and I kept asking, "Where am I? Where am I?" In my head, this was a dream. This was not real. I was bleeding out real bad and needed multiple surgeries, so they rushed me to Holy Cross Hospital. When I came to, out of surgery, I just remember being so thirsty. All I wanted was a big gulp of water, and they gave me an ice chip. I remember thinking, this is a really good metaphor for life. Also, this really hurts. What were the injuries? Well, I lost 6 units of blood. I fell on my head, so I had a really bad concussion, broken clavicle, broke most of my ribs, had punctured lungs, every breath hurt, broke my femur. They put this femoral rod in my leg. When they took it out, I asked to keep it. Smells like victory. Every ligament, I'll just use it as a pointer, every ligament and tendon connecting to my foot was severed, and all the muscle was outside of my leg covered in gravel. So they just washed everything off, reattached what they could, and shoved it back in and just sort of hoped for the best. I was a hot mess, emphasis on mess. And my poor mom, was out of town when this happened. And I would describe my parents as very divorced. So when she got an unexpected call from my dad, she was terrified. She flew home the next day, and she was by my side every day from then on out. And same with my grandma. They were my angels. I was in ICU for 5 days, and it was touch and go whether or not I'd keep the leg. I was told that it was highly likely I would have an infection, and if it spread to the femoral rod, seen here, I would have to have it amputated from the hip down. I made my mom promise that if that was the case, I'd get a peg leg and a pet parrot. She was not amused. Then the visitors started coming. I'd worked on so many shows that I had a multitude of friends and family that came in waves, and so I was always smiling because I had love around me, and I credit them to getting better so quickly. Oh, I had also lost my health insurance 2 months before the accident. But my insurance card was still in my wallet, and the hospital thought I had insurance. So it wasn't until towards the end that they're like, oh crap, we gotta get her out. So my friend did the most American thing and actually started a website to crowdsource paying my medical bills. This is way before Indiegogo, so good on you, James. When the hospital finally gave me the clothes that the EMTs cut off me, my very astute mother said, where's Natalia's underwear? So I had to explain to her, well, at least they weren't dirty. But apparently I gave the folks on the 101 quite a show that day. One of the most painful things that I felt during this time was when I first tried to walk in the hospital. I had no blood to the lower part of my right leg for 2 weeks at this point, and I swung my leg over the hospital bed. I just screamed, 10, 10, level 10. It killed. Other top contenders for this type of pain: initial impact, pulling out the catheter, that's no fun, pulling out the drain pipes in my leg, and the hospital food. When they let me home, I was hobbling around on crutches, and I was told, do not touch those bandages until you come back in a week. I was like, okay, fine. Things were going well until this bad boy started swelling up bigger and bigger and bigger, until it was thicker than this thigh. And according to my boyfriend, it was starting to smell. By the time I got to the doctors, his face turned white when he took off my bandages, and I knew I was in trouble again. Without saying a word or using any anesthesia, he ripped open the stitches and started scooping out pus and necrotic tissue. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I hope you didn't eat too much. And I didn't think pain went up to level 11, but it does. It does. And my mom was sitting right next to me, and I cried to her, please don't let them take my leg, please. We've gotten this far. My mom was sitting right next to me, and I cried to her, please don't let them take my leg, please. We've gotten this far. Look, I wasn't planning on being a ballerina. I'm not a marathoner, but I equated mobility with freedom. How was I going to be the next Jane Goodall if I couldn't walk? I'd always been afraid of being immobile, and now this was a reality. My doctor told me you need to get to an ER immediately, but guess who didn't have health insurance? I had to work magic to get into that hospital, and they wanted me out from day one. The irony, though, was this was the hospital I was born in. They brought me into the world, they can take me right back out. The infection was really bad at that point, and so they started pumping me full of antibiotics, but nothing worked. I had a vancomycin-resistant staph infection, and they decided they were going to have to do debridement surgery, and if that didn't work, amputation was back on the table. They ended up taking 75% of my tibialis anterior, or the muscle responsible for balance, that muscle, and also embedded my leg with antibiotic beads, which my leg rejected. The last thing you ever want to hear your infectious disease doctor say is, wow, I have never seen anything like this. You see this hole? I'm gonna use this pointer. You see that hole right there? That is where Mount St. Tibialis erupted in the face of Dr. Dreyer that day. It was disgusting. It was a moment that I didn't feel attached to my body. And I had to take the next few months to relearn how to walk, which I can't tell you how frustrating it is that something that comes so naturally is just impossible. Like, why can't you just walk? I'd use a cane and a leg brace. It was a time. Did I mention I have memory issues? Well, I do. And during this time, I had a lawsuit going on, and the other side had a neurologist I had to see, and he administered a ton of tests, but one stood out in particular. I had to name as many animals as I could in 60 seconds, and I laughed. And he looked at me and he said, what's so funny? I said, I'm going to smoke this. My lawyer Abe's like, Natalia, that's not the point. Well, I didn't care. and I hit the ground running. I rattled off everything from black-footed ferret to bamboo lemur. At one point, I leaned in and just said, Komodo dragon. I think I disturbed him. By the time I finished, I named 20 more than the highest scorer, and I never once said cat or dog. That was a moment. That was a moment I realized maybe you did miss your calling. I'm gonna put this rod down. Because I had mounting hospital bills, I had to get back to work quickly. And soon as I was cleared, when the wound healed, I went back to work. And then the exact same day, Central Casting called me and said, we have a rush job in San Pedro to be a body double. And I said, okay, that's cool. However, did you know I can't walk, have a leg brace, multiple scars? They said, that's fine, just get to set. So I rushed there. Wardrobe walks up to me, hands me a string bikini. And I just said, eh? And they gasped. They immediately put makeup on my leg, trying to hide everything, and took me down to set, which was a speedboat. I shit you not. Oh, and it was a night shoot, so at this point it's about midnight. My job was to run as fast as I could from the stern to the bow of the boat while the boat went speedboat speeds. Because I couldn't walk, when the director yelled action, I just hopped on one foot as fast as I could while the director screamed, faster, damn it, faster. Oh man, it turns out everybody on that boat was a stunt person, myself included, I guess. But that was the moment that it was like a Donkey Kong sucker punch saying, what are you doing with your life? You just almost bought the farm and now you're second team again? I needed to do something. I needed to change something. So I decided to go back to school, but this time, for anthropology, this time I was gonna become a scientist, damn it. And even though I was bad at math and science in high school, I figured, you know what? If you survive getting hit by a truck, you probably will pass stats. Probably. And I did. Barely. I fell back in love with gorillas. In fact, I was going to study Grauer's gorillas in DRC until once I graduated, but it was too dangerous. So, like I do, I pivoted and I studied the coolest monkey out there, spider monkeys. Folks, did you know that female spider monkeys have a hypertrophied clitoris and that males lack the penis bone or the baculum? I mean, how cool is that? In 2010, I moved to Panama and did my thesis fieldwork in some of the most treacherous terrain out there that even an able-bodied person would have problems with. But I got to finally do my best Jane Goodall impression with a walking stick and a bad limp. But I was able to do it. I did it. So I just want you to remember that it's never too late until it is. So go do the damn thing. And I think some people need, a kick in the pants to get their life in gear, and some people need to get hit by a mid-sized truck. Just make sure you're wearing underwear when you do. Thank you so much.